Hi, I'm Jilly G. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to do my turkey brine. And I've got everything ready, and this is the brine for about a 12 to 15-ish pound turkey. So really minimal ingredients for the brine. And once you make the brine and you put the turkey in it, you want it to sit in the fridge in the brine for about 24 hours. And so you'll do this the day before you're going to cook your turkey. But I've got everything ready here. I've got about 8 to 10 garlic cloves. Some of these are kind of big. And I've just smashed them and peeled them. They're not chopped up or anything, but they are smashed and kind of broken a little bit. 3 tablespoons of peppercorns. 1 lemon that I've sliced. 3/4 of a cup of kosher salt. And then 3/4 of a cup of maple syrup. And in my saucepan here, I have 4 cups of water. And we're going to mix all of this in the saucepan just so the salt will dissolve. And then we'll cool it off. And then clean our turkey, get it ready, put it in my big pot that I have back there. I don't know if you can see it back there. Way back there. Let me bring it closer for you. This big pot. So in this pot, I have 4 cups of water, my salt, my garlic, and my peppercorns, and my maple syrup. And you want it on about medium-high. Stir this occasionally until all the salt is dissolved. Once all of your salt is dissolved, add in your lemon, and I don't care if the seeds are still in there. While my brine is cooling off, I'm going to get my turkey out of the packaging, rinse it off, take out the innards, and get it ready to put into this pot. Here's my turkey. It's about a 15-ish pound, as I mentioned. And my turkey, it's a little bit frozen in the middle, but thawed enough, or fresh, whatever you have. But it's thawed enough to get all of my innards out. So here's the neck, and then here's the other innards. And I just saved these in a plastic bag. We'll use those to make the gravy. Turkey is ready. And because I am short, I have a little stool that I can put my pot on. Although now you can't see it, but it's right here. Maybe I'll get a taller stool. There. Now you can kind of see it. And my brine has cooled off. So for this size of a turkey, we need 8 to 10 quarts of water. I already have 1 quart in here. 4 cups is a quart. So 1 quart already, and then I just need 7.5 more quarts of water I'm going to put in here first. So there's my 7.5 quarts of water, and I'm just going to pour in my brine mixture and give it a good stir. And then we're going to very carefully pick up your turkey and put it in this brine. And you can see it's not submerged all the way. You can fill this up the rest of the way with water and make sure it's totally submerged. So now that our turkey is in this pot, I'm going to put the lid on and put it in my fridge. 24 hours in the fridge, and I'll show you tomorrow how we're going to cook it. So it's been 24 hours that my turkey has been brining in the fridge. And I've brought it into the kitchen. I have it back here on this little stool so I can lift it into my sink a little easier. I'll bring you in closer and show you what it looks like. So once you are ready to take your turkey out of this pot, I make sure to tip it upside down to get all the water out of the cavity to make it easier to lift. And then right into our sink. And you'll see little peppercorns are here and there, and that's fine. You want to just rinse it off. Cold water. Wash your hands. I have a towel that I put my cookie sheet on, just so it doesn't slide around too much. I have my turkey roasting pan here, and I wasn't sure if my turkey would fit, and now I'm really sure that it's not gonna fit. There. So my smaller roasting pan, I can get a 12-pound turkey in there and put the lid on. But I have this really big roasting pan that will fit my 15-ish pound turkey better. It's really handy to have. You might ask yourself why you need 2 roasting pans, but this is why. So what we're gonna do first is, let me move this out of the way so you can see. I have 2 about medium-sized onions cut up in this bowl. And I have about 4 really large garlic cloves. So I've cut them in half, but those are ready to go in that bowl. And I have some fresh thyme here from my garden. Or if you can't find fresh thyme, you can use dried. And I don't know if you've ever used fresh thyme, but it's the easiest thing. You just get your little twig here, and then you hold the top of it, and you go against the grain of which way the little leaves are growing. And then you just run your fingers down, and it comes right off. And then you could just pick off the top here. And you want about 2 tablespoons of fresh thyme. Now that you've got your fresh thyme ready, put that over here. Clean up your mess. Bring this back over here. And to our fresh thyme, we have our other spices here. So with our fresh thyme, I'm going to get a bigger bowl. Fresh thyme. I just want to be able to stir it all around without making a big mess. I have 1 tablespoon of poultry seasoning and 1 tablespoon of sage. And they look the exact same. And then I've got about a half a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of pepper in there. And then I just mix it with my hands. So now that that's ready, I also have about 4 tablespoons of butter. And my oven is preheated to 375. So bring over your turkey. And I usually take out this little plastic thing. And the first thing you want to do is right here where the drumstick meets kind of the breast area. I just go in with my hand and I loosen up the skin. Do that on both sides. And if you find a little peppercorn, that's all right. And I don't know about you, but I always take out the little popper. I don't need it. But if you want to keep it in there, and that's how you tell if your turkey is done, go right ahead. I've never really had much success with those being accurate. And then same thing over here. You want to be careful not to tear the skin. But I just loosen it enough, because we're going to put some butter and some herbs in there. So take a pat of butter, and I just kind of flatten it out. It's soft enough that you can do this. So I just stick a pat of butter on this one, on this side, and then I'm going to do the same thing for this side over here. And then I'm also going to start putting in my herb mixture in with the butter. An even easier way than to do this is you could just mash your butter around with your herbs and then put it all in together. I might do that next year. So I just put herbs and butter anywhere that you want it to go. And then my last tablespoon of butter, I put a little bit inside, and then I actually just kind of spread it out on top here. It's gonna melt anyways. And then I take some of my herbs, throw in the cavity, and just start throwing in your onions. You could stuff your turkey if you wanted to. I've never stuffed a turkey, so I don't have any advice to give you on it. And garlic, throw in there, and it's true. I am stuffing this turkey, just not with stuffing. I'm stuffing it with onions and garlic. Now that you've got your onions and your garlic in there, and then I just sprinkle the rest of this on top. And to my roasting pan, I have a little bit of butter on my pastry brush, and I'm just gonna brush my rack here. You don't have to do this step, but it really does help. It usually doesn't stick, but just in case. So what I'm going to do is just lift up my turkey into my roasting pan. Stick your wings underneath your drumsticks. And they usually pop out when it's baking. I think my turkey is crooked. Get whatever herbs didn't make it off of this pan here, throw on here. I really think my turkey is crooked. What we're gonna do first is cover this with foil, bake it for about 45 minutes. You could tie your drumsticks together, but I don't. So into the oven for 45 minutes. I have a half a cup of maple syrup and 1 cup of chicken stock. So I'm going to put this in my saucepan, bring it up to a boil, and turn the heat off. My turkey went for 45 minutes. Very carefully, watch the steam. Try to take the foil off without tearing it with your gloves on. So now for our chicken stock and maple syrup, give it a good stir and then just pour it on top. And now you'll want to cover this back up with the foil. And I know it didn't look like that's a lot of liquid. You can always add more water or even more chicken stock if you feel like you need more liquid in the bottom. But the turkey will release more juices, and that's part of our gravy, which I'll show you soon. I'm going to put this back into the oven. I'll check in about another hour. You can periodically baste it with the juices that are in there. And then we want this to be fully cooked, which will be about 180 degrees. And then when you think you're getting close, you can take the foil off and let the top get a little more golden brown if you want to. And while my turkey's in the oven, I'm going to show you the beginning of the gravy. And I've got things ready to make the cranberry sauce. So you've got your neck and your innards. And if you're a little squeamish about using the innards, you don't have to do that. But it just adds extra flavor to your gravy. And they were all in the turkey anyways at one point, so it's all part of the turkey. Okay, so in your pot with your innards and your neck, I have 1.5 cups of chicken stock. And we're just gonna pour this in here. And it doesn't cover all of it, and that's fine. You don't need it to cover. So then I'm gonna stick this over here on my burner. And you want to bring it up to a boil, and then once it starts to boil, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer, put the lid on, and let it simmer for about a half hour, 45 minutes. So while that's going, in this pan, same spatula as my chicken stock and maple syrup mixture. I've washed them. This is a really good time-saving trick, is to just wash as you go. Then at the end of the day, you're not overwhelmed with all of the dishes that you have in your house. I have 3 cups of fresh cranberries here. You could use frozen. I've washed and I've kind of picked through to get out the bad ones. So put those right there. And to our saucepan, I just have a half a cup of honey. And to our half a cup of honey, I have 1 orange that I've squozen. And that orange equals, it was 1/4 of a cup. And then I added 1/4 of a cup of cranberry juice. And then I filled up the rest, half cup of water. Pour that in with your honey. And I have some orange peel here, which I didn't get from my orange. I've mentioned before that I use orange peel from a spice company. I'll put a link for that below. So all in here. And it's just dehydrated, and then you just rehydrate it with a little bit of water. Bring it over to your stovetop. And I start out on medium heat. And then when it comes up to a boil, we'll add in the cranberries. My chicken stock and other parts of the turkey are up to a boil. I'm gonna turn it down to a simmer and put the lid on. And my honey and juices and water and orange peel are all just coming up to a boil. I'm just stirring it to make sure the honey is all dissolved. And once it's boiling, add in your cranberries and just stir this around till all of the cranberries pop. And it gets really thick. Once your cranberry sauce is all finished, it will thicken up a little bit more as it cools off. So I've got my 2 serving dishes here. Once it's cooled off to room temperature, actually give it a good stir. Wrap these in plastic wrap, stick them in the fridge, and they're ready for your dinner. It's been about another 45 minutes. And I've turned it around in my oven, so the other side was now facing that side. I don't know if you can see all this steam coming off. And now the tricky part, I don't have a turkey baster. So what I do, I hold onto the rack one-handed and tilt the pan with a spoon that fits. You can get your juices. If you had a smaller spoon that fit better, you could be a little more effective. Or a turkey baster. But I've gone 20 years without a turkey baster. I don't know why I'd start using one now. Now we're going to wrap this back up. I'm going to turn it around again in the oven. I've got a big pot here. It's got water in it, and I already have some potatoes cut up in there. I usually get my potatoes ready as soon as I put the turkey in the oven, first thing in the morning. Once you get all of your potatoes cut up and in the water, you can cook them when it gets closer to having the turkey be done. But what I end up usually doing is as soon as I get my potatoes in the water, I end up cooking those first, right after the turkey goes into the oven. So I cook my mashed potatoes, get them all ready to go, and I put them in a crock pot. And I turn the crock pot on low, because they're already cooked. You just want to keep them warm. And then your potatoes are off of your stovetop, out of the way of whatever else you might need to do. And if they're in the crock pot for a really long time, they'll get a little bit crispy on the bottom. And you just save those parts for yourself because you don't want to share those anyways, because crispy mashed potatoes are a treat that you get to have after your long day in the kitchen. Make sure all of your potatoes are submerged in the water. And I'll actually add a little bit more water and some salt to this. But right now we can move it over to our stovetop. And now we're ready for our beginnings to our gravy. It's been going for about 45 minutes. In the same measuring cup that I measured the stock in, it's going to be a dangerous thing to do because the strainer is a little bit big. Turn your heat off. And a lot of this liquid reduced down, but it's got all of the flavor of the innards. And just very carefully pour your juice in. And I called it juice. It isn't juice. It's chicken stock. And that's about 3/4 of a cup. We can always add more chicken stock and we'll see what pan drippings we get. And that will be our gravy. don't know if you can hear this bubbling, and my potatoes are bubbling. My turkey is looking amazing. I have a little thermometer here. You want to stick it in part of the meaty part, making sure not to touch bone. If you stick it in where a bone is, you'll get not an accurate reading. And it's not quite ready yet. But I've got a lot of pan juices here and my spoon. And I'm gonna baste a little bit more and stick it back in the oven. But it's looking really amazing. It smells amazing too. And I mentioned that I was gonna take my foil off, but it's getting nice and brown without. So I'm gonna keep the foil on. I've mentioned before, I stir my potatoes with my masher, and then it's really easy to lift it up and test for doneness. Turn off your heat and drain. Once they're drained, put them right back into the pot. I have about a half a stick of butter. You can add however much you want. I have some salt and pepper. Once I've got the butter and salt and pepper mashed around, I'm gonna add in my mayonnaise. I've got about a half a cup here. You could also use milk, heavy cream, or sour cream. And just mash this all together until it's the consistency that you want it to be. And then I use my spatula, scrape around, make sure I've got everything mixed in. But while we're waiting for the turkey, I'll show you part of the gravy. So there's two different variations you can do for the gravy. Or there might be three. If you have a way that you like to make gravy that isn't either of these that I will show you. And I'm actually only going to show you one. So when my turkey is finished, I'm going to strain my juices from there into this cup with my other juices. And the reason I'm doing that is so I can see how much I've got. And then if I need to add any extra chicken stock, I can. And I have about 3/4 of a cup of milk. And the first variation for gravy is if you have, it's about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to almost a cup of milk. And you would just mix those together and mix it up with a whisk or a fork until your cornstarch isn't lumpy. When you bring your pan drippings up to a boil, you would add in your milk and cornstarch mixture and whisk until it's really thick. But you need it to boil with the cornstarch to make it thicken. So that's the first variation. The second variation that has become my favorite, although the cornstarch one works really, really well. But this makes a really good gravy, and not even just gravy, any kind of pan sauce that you want, which is also gravy. Equal parts, 2 tablespoons of softened butter, 2 tablespoons of, this is my gluten-free flour mix. And my butter is soft enough to mash with a fork. Once you've mashed your butter around a little bit, add in your 2 tablespoons of flour. And I'll probably wish I had chosen a bigger bowl. And then just mash these together. You want to make a paste. Switch to a spatula. It'll be easier. And when you think it's never going to come together, it does. And that's done. I'll show you how it all comes together when my turkey is done. While my turkey is finishing up in the oven, I want to show you how set up my cranberry sauce is. Nice and thick. And of course, after being in the fridge, it will get a little bit thicker. But it looks really good. Let's give it a try. It makes such a difference when you use juice instead of just water. And even cranberry juice. It's even more cranberry flavored than just cranberries. And with the honey, it's not super sweet. And the orange isn't overpowering at all. You just get a little hint of orange and then cranberry. And it's just the right amount of sweet. And a little bit tart. Perfect for spreading on a sandwich with turkey the next day. save your foil over there. Give yourself a steam bath with your turkey. And then I usually test a couple of different spots on my turkey just to make sure everywhere is done. And when you've made as many turkeys as I have, which I'm sure a lot of you have, you get to know when it starts kind of pulling away from the bones like this, you can tell that it's done. And my turkey's not done yet. You want it to come up to 180, and it's not quite there yet. So a little bit longer in the oven. Perfect. And very carefully, I'm going to move the bird to my cookie sheet here. There we go. Very carefully, that's hot. Tent your turkey and just let it rest. And then you'll see in our pan here, let's turn it back around this way. You'll see in our pan, we've got all kinds of bits. I'm just gonna scrape these up off the bottom of the pan. Ideally, what you would wanna do is strain out this mixture and then make your gravy in this pan on a burner. But this pan is really big and it's really hard to whisk the entirety of it so you don't get lumpy gravy. And so I try to scrape up all of the bits that I can. Even though I am gonna strain it, you still get as much flavor as you can. And I think instead of straining it into here, I'm just gonna strain it over the pot and then just eyeball the amount. It's gravy, it's fine. And very carefully, and we could probably pour it into here. And that's not quite all of it, but you'll notice the fat is starting to rise to the top, and you could just skim that off. But you don't have to. You could leave it in, and I'll leave some of it in because it does help make a delicious gravy. Pour back into your pan. And I'm going to turn this on medium heat. Once my liquid here starts to heat up, I'm going to add in a little bit of my butter paste at a time, whisking constantly until it gets as thick as you'd like it to be. I'll add in the milk as I go and salt and pepper. But I usually wait until it's the thickness that I want, and then I add in salt and pepper last. You never know, with all the spices we've got on there, how salty it's going to be. So now is the tricky part. And if you've done a good job of cooking your turkey, it will fall apart. And I know it's really hot, but I think hands are probably the easiest way to move it. There we go. So cover it back up with your foil. And this is just coming up to a simmer. But just slowly start adding in little bits of your butter paste and mixing them in, and then add in more. And just keep adding in your butter paste until it's all gone. Once all of the butter flour paste is dissolved and it's getting thick, you can start adding in your milk. And I just added about half of the milk. And I use a spoon just to see what my thickness is for my gravy. And this is also where I'm going to taste it and see if I need a little bit of salt and pepper. I don't think it needs any seasoning at all. I'm going to put the lid on, move it off of the hot burner, And just let it sit there while I start carving my turkey. I'll occasionally stir it, but it's fine with the lid on. And then what I do, so messy, but what I do, if you want to eat the skin, eat the skin. But if you don't, I just start peeling it off, but I save it. I have a plastic bag here with the neck that I was simmering for a gravy. And this is where I'm gonna put all of the skin and all of the carcass. And it will fit in there. And then you can save it. You can make stock, or you can put it in the freezer and make stock later. You could just carve this and put it right back into your roasting pan or your platter, whatever you're gonna serve it on. But this cookie sheet is perfect, and then I usually lay out white meat and dark meat, and then the drumsticks I leave on the sticks. I leave on the bone. But I'm gonna show you one of the easiest ways that I found to carve at least the breast part of the turkey. Come sideways here. And you can see where this breastbone is. And I just cut down along the bone here, all the way as far as I can, and then I come down here along the bottom. And then you can lift off the entire breast. And it's so much easier once you've got the whole thing over here, then you can just slice it into slices. And of course you didn't get all of it, but then you just go along and get the rest of it. And it's still really hot. I don't know if you can see all of this steam. And then just get your drumsticks. Sometimes they'll just break apart, and sometimes they need a little help. See, in this one came right off. There's a wing, and then just carve the whole turkey. Of course, on the day of, you don't want to pick the carcass while your guests are waiting. So just give yourself some room, and then slice it into however big a pieces that you want it to be. And then you've got your whole breast that is sliced up. And you could either put this on your platter or just arrange it on here. I know a cookie sheet isn't the fanciest servingware for a Thanksgiving dinner, but it works really well. My gravy is ready. Potatoes are ready. Cranberry sauce. I need a fork. I had a fork somewhere. So get yourself a piece of turkey. Mashed potatoes. Let's get another piece of turkey here. A little bit of our cranberry sauce. And now for our gravy. I'm actually going to flatten down my potatoes a little bit. And I know people have a lot more than just turkey and potatoes and cranberry sauce for their Thanksgiving dinner. But if you watched my recent videos, you'll have seen all of the side dishes that go with this. And you'll notice my gravy is a little bit on the thin side, but I always tend to go a little bit thinner because it always thickens up the longer it sits. And so if you have your gravy boat on the table, by the time people might get seconds, it's a pretty thick gravy. But let's give the turkey a try. It is really good. If you've never tried a turkey brine before, I encourage you to do it. It really makes it so the turkey doesn't dry out. And if you've ever had anybody that doesn't like the white meat because it has a tendency to dry out, that is not a problem with this recipe. That gravy is one of my favorite gravies. Something about the maple syrup in there And all of the seasonings and spices too. It really comes together to be a perfect turkey dinner. And whether you make your gravy with cornstarch or this butter paste, something about the butter in this gravy really gives it a nice texture. It just seems silkier and smoother. Well, I hope some of my Thanksgiving tips and tricks have helped you with your holiday meal planning. And I hope you try brining your turkey. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how it really does make a difference on how juicy your turkey is. And if you've never made homemade cranberry sauce before, give it a try this year and see how easy it really is and how much better it is without sugar. At least I think so. And of course the gravy. Maybe I should give you a close-up of my gravy. I don't know if the camera is doing it any justice. But it's even gotten a little bit thicker just since I've been talking to you. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that has subscribed and watches my videos and always comments. I always love hearing the comments. Everyone is so nice and has ideas and tips and suggestions, and I really appreciate that. It's nice to get to know everybody and you learn about me and I learn a little bit about you. I have a lot of recipes to share, and liking and watching my videos is really helping me out. And I do have a Patreon. I know I've mentioned that before, and I really do appreciate the patrons that I have. I can't say thank you enough for that. And I've mentioned before, I know that not everybody can support in the ways of money, and just liking and watching my videos is helping. But I'm trying to work on doing more videos to share with you guys. I'm working on a cookbook. I've talked about that a little bit in some of my comments when I reply to you guys. And I'm working on that, and hopefully very soon that will be coming out. And it will be a lot of recipes that you've seen and some that you haven't seen. And those will be future videos as well. I'm working on that. And I have so many more recipes to share. And if you're interested in seeing more, support in any way that you can. Share on social media, share with your friends and family, share with strangers, make new friends. And you're watching this video right before Thanksgiving, even though this is my turkey dinner before actual Thanksgiving Day. But I hope everybody has a safe and happy holiday. And always, thanks for watching.